Good morning. I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. We'll talk about midnight deals of politicians here at the forefront. Right after assuming her post as Makati City Mayor on June 30, in less than a week, Mayor Nancy Binay uncovered a 9 billion pesos midnight settlement by her younger sister, former Mayor Abby Binay, for the derailed Makati Subway Project. In his inaugural speech, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno bared that incumbent City Hall officials made roughly cash advances amounting to 4 billion pesos in the final stretch of Mayor Honey Lacuna's term. These allegations raise serious concerns about abuse of authority and financial burdens passed on to the new administration. What mechanisms must be set in place to stop these practices and ensure accountability? With us this morning to contextualize the issue of last-minute expenditures and appointments in Philippine politics, we have the Director of the Center for Local and Regional Governance of UP-NCPAG, Dr. Reginald Ugaddan. Good morning, Dr. Reggie.
Good morning.
Yeah. So first, let's talk about midnight deals. Can you give us in simple terms, what are the telltale signs of midnight deals?
Of course, we have to understand first what is this midnight deals all about. These are actually questionable actions made by an outgoing official, or particularly for a local government, an LCE, during his or her lame duck period. When I say a lame duck period, is a period wherein between the election and the inauguration of a successor.
So ibig sabihin, nanalo na yung bagong kandidato, pero officially,
is not
hindi
yet
pa nag-assume ng
yes.
office. Kasi yun yung period na nagsiserve pa ng final days
yes.
sa office.
So these are, I should really put it, of course, to emphasize it, it's questionable agreements or contract or even a policy made by a local chief executive or an administrator for a particular local government unit.
What about appointments? Does this count as well as a midnight deal, yung mga midnight appointments?
If you're to look at it, yung midnight deals na yan, it's actually an extension of that term, midnight appointments, right? There are, of course, constitutional barriers or constitutional ban about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, for midnight appointments,
for
it's clear in our
appointment,
constitution,
yes.
may provision talaga siya that prohibits it. What about midnight deals in terms of entering into contracts or what you say, creating new policies?
Yeah, just to put it in context then, midnight appointments are really illegal. Oh, I mean, there are bans on it. For midnight deals, these are made questionable, right? Questionable contracts or agreements. But of course, we have to understand it. Yung pagka-question sa kanya, if we have to question, of course, the legality of a midnight deal. As always, kasi we have this presumption of validity or regularity.
Yeah.
Whatever actions, agreements, or contracts or policies made by a local government official or an LCE during his or her period na hindi pa natatapos.
Yeah, and that's part of administrative law. Talagang
Yes.
meron what we call a doctrine of presumption of regularity of the acts, like of someone who's still an incumbent. Pero ano yung mga detrimental effects ba ng midnight deals? Bakit ito controversial?
It's controversial because you're not giving a chance for the incoming or your successors to really plan or to have that opportunity to use different resources. Sometimes, ang nangyayari if we have this midnight deals is that it's trying to deplete the resources of a particular local government unit, so that of course it will be hard for the next administration to have projects, right, or to have programs or activities for his or her agenda. What is the plans? Those are possible issues there. Pero syempre, as always, we look at some regularity, and it's again for the successor to question those deals that are made in that context ng midnight deals.
Okay, and kung sakaling hindi nga siya pabor sa LGU, ano yung mga remedies in the past that have been used in order to either nullify or question midnight deals?
As always, that's a remedy left for the successor, no, to look into these contracts, to these agreements, whether they are legal. That's the only legal remedy to nullify it, right? To question or not even.
Yes, what you mean
right?
is walang specific provision sa batas that directly makes it illegal. So therefore, you have to study first kung merong factors
Yes.
with the contract or, for example, or the policy that
Yeah.
makes it illegal per se.
Yes. There's no definition, right, in law about midnight deals,
Oo.
even questioning it. That's why there's this regularity, assumption of, a presumption of regularity, as I mentioned a while ago. Right?
Well, can you give us a history of Philippine politics in terms of yung paano nagkaroon ng word na midnight deals? Kasi nga, pareho tayo, we're talking about the law, na ang pagkakaalam talaga natin, wala namang specific provision sa batas that refers to this. Pero we still are aware that this term is being used, and in fact, in the news kahit sa Makati, yan yung term na ginamit with this 9 billion peso subway project.
Yeah.
So, ano ba yung root nitong midnight deals? How far back does this go?
Attorney, there are no recorded histories talaga, no, about midnight deals. There are even terms used describing midnight deals as midnight agreements. Pero ang pinaka-basis kasi is as always on that midnight appointments. That was even during the time of President Quirino to Magsaysay. And you can see that there are lots of midnight agreements or questionable agreements ending a term of a particular president, no, in the national level. And even this kind of situations or conditions in the national level, ang dami-dami din nangyayari even in the local governments, no. That's why historically it may be hard for us to state, no, what particular year kaya nagsimula ito, but we can possibly look at cases of midnight or questionable agreements to a certain period wherein the term of particular presidency ending. I mentioned nga yung case ni Quirino that there are lots of appointments and even contracts or agreements made, no, that seems to be questionable.
So panahon pa lang ni President Quirino, meron ng ganito. Sa kanya ba nagsimula? Or at least that's what you know?
Yeah, at
na
least
nag-start?
that's what I know. Maybe there are instances that we can look at those histories, no. Baka even prior to that, baka may mga ganong nangyayari pa.
Well, what about prior administrations, at least in recent times? Like from Ramos to Estrada, there were other deals like a 53 billion municipal telephone project in 1998, which was 2 days before Estrada assumed office.
Yeah, those are, for me, it's telling us already, these are red flags actually for me of a midnight deal or a midnight agreements.
Pero in hindsight,
Mhm.
when we look at this municipal telephone project that cost 53 billion pesos, may nangyari ba dito na nababuti? Na-implement ba siya? Actually, ako hindi ko na rin maalala what this is about, but did we benefit from it? Kasi if it were a midnight deal, but then the country benefited from it, then perhaps it's not so bad.
Yeah, for me, then attorney, I just want, of course, to tell you that it was, of course, during the time of Estrada, no, para mang itinuloy din yung ganong projects. But I think it gave, of course, a lot of benefits also to the people. So baka ito rin, ano, parang for me, midnight deals is not really beneficial, or it can be questioned, or it can be, for me, it can be red flagged. It's something that's really, the benefits of it is for a certain company only, or maybe it's not really will redound to the benefit of the Filipino people. I think that's something. Yeah.
Well, in the Philippines, one of the things that usually is a source of corruption is the awarding of contracts, because it's an open secret, right? That
Yes.
some politicians are in the practice of getting a kickback or some type of percentage out of the value of the project. So is that part of what you're saying is a detrimental effect of midnight deals when, or is this more of a political issue na yung palabas na sa pwesto gustong kumita from the project, therefore they try to sign or bag a deal before papasok pa lang yung bagong elect?
Uh, those are instances, no, na wherein, of course, you can see how corruption is really systemically, I mean, embedded in the Philippine bureaucracy. No? I think mga forma lang yun, attorney, no, ng corruption. But of course, I can see that there are other ways, no, na pumapasok din, no, yung usapin ng corruption. That's detrimental, of course, no. But I can
But
see more
it would have
serious.
happened anyway. Even, let's say, we have two corrupt officials. Obviously, this is theoretical. Pero kahit sabihin mong hindi kumita yung patapos na sa term niya, kung yung papasok naman will do the same thing, then we're talking about the same project. Then whether it's a midnight deal or not, parang nag-iba lang yung kung sino yung makikinabang in terms of the corruption from the project.
For me, yung usapin ng timing kasi, the timing, and of course, you can possibly look at the intention behind that particular deal. No? The timing, if it's done really at the end na, no, parang patapos na why you're doing that or why you're approving or pushing for such project, right? The intention possibly, of course, it's hard for us to judge on the intention. It's basically looking at the circumstances of a particular project, and maybe we can dig more evidence, no, to get the intention. But as always, no, pagka ginawa yan in a period na it is a midnight bill, the intention for me is very clear na there's something really fishy on that particular project.
Well, with us also this morning is someone who is known for flagging budget misuse and corruption, a representative of Bicol Saro Partylist, Congressman Terry Ridon.
Hi, Karen.
Good morning, Congressman Terry.
Thank you for having me.
In this discussion of midnight deals, what for you are the red flags related to the current Makati Subway Project, which current Mayor Nancy Binay flagged?
Well, I think we have to talk first about whether or not the Makati Subway Project is actually beneficial for the city, particularly relating to its impact on cementing Makati as still the nation's financial hub. No? So I think we have to discuss that first. But secondly, of course, if there are actual particular concerns, no, relating to how to fund it and how to actually make it happen, I think those are two different things that we have to discuss. But the promise of the Makati Subway Project was that it's a public-private partnership. No? So it's a real concern if it will ultimately be borne by the city instead of it operating as an actual commercial enterprise.
Well, what were the terms of the deal, if you have at least some of the significant terms?
Well, I think the real promise of the deal was basically there is no single centavo which will be spent by Makati City on the project. And from what I understand, the real concern for the new administration is that it doesn't seem to be so at this point.
So you mean hindi naman pala zero yung gagastusin nung city?
I think that this is the concern being raised by current Mayor Nancy Binay. No? So obviously there are, outside of the questions on whether it's a PPP, on whether the city will benefit from it, or whether it is grossly disadvantageous to government or to Makati City, of course there is a political story going into play here between the conflict between both sisters. No? So,
so are you saying yung pag-flag nito has something to do also with the political dynamic and relationship between the sisters?
Well, I think that has been clear in the last couple of months, particularly during the election campaign. I don't want to dwell on the specific case of Makati because I think it will still play out in the court. It will still play out as in the city itself. No,
Yeah.
How Mayor Nancy will actually investigate it. How the city council, the current city council, will actually investigate it.
Well, there's also a pending arbitration case that has been filed in Singapore by the contractor here. So I suppose you're right, there's still some issues that have to be determined by the proper forum. But should there be, let's say, a ruling by the Singapore Arbitration Court, to what extent can Makati still have a remedy in this contract if that decision in the Singapore Arbitration Court is favorable to the contractor?
We'll have to wait for the arbitration results, no? And as if it is favorable to the contractor, if it's favorable to Makati, I think it is only then that Mayor Nancy and the rest of the city council can actually create the steps forward.
Well, what about other allegations of midnight deals or midnight transactions? Mayor Isko Moreno pointed out that there were cash advances to City Hall officials that amount to around 4 billion pesos. What do you make out of that?
Well, firstly, we don't want audits and investigations to be public political spectacles. So I'm not quite certain whether Mayor Isko at this point has all the information on how former Mayor Honey Lacuna had actually undertaken all of these uses of funds. No? So I think we'd like to see an actual case being filed by Mayor Isko on the former city officials.
So ibig sabihin dapat they should seek the remedy in the proper form pero instead of talking publicly about it.
Well, of course, they have every right to speak on it publicly as public officials, but again, we'd like to see a little bit more information on whether or not these are illegal transactions that had been undertaken by the previous Manila city government.
Okay. And since kanina, Professor Reggie, you mentioned timing, right? Like most of these deals happen before there's a change in the administration at here, for example, local level. Why do these kinds of transactions surface after an election cycle?
Attorney Karen, parang it's paulit-ulit siya na nangyayari. Looking at different local government units, lumalabas yung usapin ng midnight deals. Lalo na kapag if the incumbent is losing a candidate to a successor. That's why they're doing those. But you can also see cases naman that that it's a winning party naman, and same incumbent with that party. You cannot really see issues of midnight deals. It's always if there is a change of that administration. You can possibly see mas nasasabi natin there are really anomalies when the changing or the successor is not really that part of the party. Maybe
or hindi ally.
Hindi ally.
Yeah.
So nangyayari yung ganitong mga sinasabi natin na midnight deals. Yes.
But in the past, Congressman Terry, what remedies have been pursued that have become effective in terms of either nullifying or avoiding the detrimental effects of a midnight deal?
Well, there are two aspects on making people accountable for all of these deals. So firstly is current governments actually file cases in the ombudsman against former officials on whether or not graft exists, on whether or not it is grossly advantageous to government. And second of all, aside from the ombudsman case, they actually cancel these particular deals after inquiries on whether or not it is actually grossly disadvantageous to government. But these take time. So it's very important for current government official, whether at the national level or at the local level, to not make it seem as a public political spectacle, not make it seem like it's a witch hunt. Because I think the public would want to see what current government officials actually have to offer the people that voted for them into office.
Okay. And in your opinion, to what extent is this an issue of just finding whether there's an anomaly or whether it's also part of delicadeza to let the incoming official select policies or select certain types of transactions that the government that they'll run would have to pay for?
Well, there's no choosing between the two. I think both happen at the same time. But I think the public interest here is, firstly, whether or not the previous deals or current deals actually benefit them, and how does it actually benefit them if it's a public-private partnership. that there is no actual guarantee from a local government that it will be them that will foot the bill, and instead it would actually be a commercial enterprise. No, so I think these are two things that the public should be able to watch out for when we look at all of these deals.
Do you think there should be a provision similar to midnight appointments where it's clear that within a certain period, bawal na yung mga transactions? In the election code, I seem to recall meron ding mga bawal na acts, right? Like certain types of...
I think you can't do a procurement during a particular period of time before and after an election. So I think that these are things that we have to be able to do, but we aren't talking about projects here. We're talking about I guess financial transactions within city governments, no? So I think it's something that Congress could actually look into.
But kailan ba masasabing midnight deal? For example, with this Makati Subway Project, kailan ba siya pinasukan? Why is it being called a midnight deal?
Well, I think it's being called a midnight deal because I think for such a long period of time, there was no movement in the project. In fact, I think everyone in Makati already thought that it was shuttered and nothing was going to happen about it. No, but sooner or later, the contractor wanted to do arbitration and something happened. No? So I think it's a real concern for the current government, irrespective of what I feel about what is happening within the family. No? So I think ultimately, I think people in Makati would actually want to see a subway.
Yeah, I would love to see
within the financial center
and it would
of the
ease the
nation.
traffic. They're so strict with number coding. So for people, the option to have a subway would really help in terms of mobility inside Makati. So palagay nyo ba ang magandang remedy dito is just to allow it to proceed, or what do you think would be best for the project? Because Cong Terry, you were talking about when you're assessing a project, you should look at how it benefits the constituents.
Well, I think there needs to be a penalty to the previous contractor for basically delaying the project from the time that they started and the time it was proposed up until today. So I think I'd rather leave it to the current leadership in Makati to determine whether or not, firstly, to proceed with it, and second of all, to continue working with the previous contractor, or outrightly just canceling the entire idea and look for some other contractor who can actually do the thing.
Or maybe to check whether the contractor is the one that's at fault, or maybe there are other causes of delay.
Yeah, I think it's within their power to do all of these things, but we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that probably a subway in Makati, through BGC actually, is something that's very important for economic growth for the nation, not just for both cities, no, but for the entire economic plan that you would want to see in the next few years.
Professor Reggie, is it common to see midnight deals only in LGUs with large eras, or does this also happen in municipal governments or LGUs with small budgets?
Yes, nangyayari din yung ganito, no, Attorney Karen. Even in a, maybe we can say, an LGU with a very small NTA, the national tax. But let me just, yung usapin kasi is that yung midnight deals, no? For the case of Makati, I would like to mention, having a subway is very important. I mean, for me, it will benefit the city or Makatizens. No? Yun yung term na ginagamit ng Makatizens. But as always kasi, parang naku-question lang siya because of this, the timing and also the lack of transparency. I mean, the DILG, gave, or they issued memorandum circulars about having a local governance transition team. Ginagawa na dapat yan, parang 2 months before pa na matatapos yung term. There's that question. There's no question about the project per se, but there's a question or para bang issue. It became a midnight deal, tuloy, no? Because of the timing and also the lack of transparency. The timing is already established because it was done like days or weeks before the end terms, the term of the administration of Nancy of Abby will end. The lack of transparency there for me is that they should have been very transparent, or should have mentioned even in the the transition. No? Of course, there are news coming out already that the transition team of Abby, were not able to tell them or to tell them about this deal. And then you have that. So there's really lack of transparency. It became a midnight deal. A very good project for me. It became a midnight deal and question because of that lack of transparency and the timing. Parang the whole process there, the intention is very good, but there seems to be missing on that process that they have.
Yeah. Well, if this is a PPP, then the contract should be available publicly as well. Or have you been able to see the contract?
Well, no. I think there are confidentiality clauses also
Yes.
within PPPs. No, so
Yeah, but we should know
I'm
like
not-
the value and some of the basic terms.
I think the basic information is available, but the particular contracts aren't available. I think there are confidentiality clauses within these contracts of PPPs. But of course, Congress can most definitely, and the City Council, the current City Council should be able to have information on all of these things as well.
Is it usual for Congress to have inquiries that relate to just LGU projects?
I think Congress has plenary powers to make determinations, make inquiries, make oversight on national projects and also local projects, particularly because Congress is run by districts and party lists. So district congressmen have every interest to make sure that local projects are actually undertaken above board and actually delivered to their constituents.
Well, Makati is the center of the financial district of the Philippines and also one of the highest income earning cities in the Philippines. In your opinion, do you think this merits a congressional inquiry?
Well, I think given the level of the funds, the project costs so that are involved in a subway project within the nation's financial center, I think it would merit a congressional inquiry on whether or not, firstly, should it actually proceed, and secondly, whether the city should bear the costs of building the subway or instead of it being actually run by the private sector.
Is there merit to the idea that some midnight deals are actually sabotage to make their successors look bad? But before you answer that question, we'll have to take a short break. At the forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the forefront. Let's go back to this question. Is there merit to the idea that some midnight deals are actually sabotage to make their successors look bad?
Well, I think that's a bit an elaborate scheme already. I don't think people make midnight deals to make other people look bad. They do midnight deals for their own self-interest, for their own, benefit. No? So I don't think it's an elaborate scheme to make the other person look bad. But again, going back to the Makati Subway Project, I think it's a bit concerning that the previous Makati government will actually settle around 8 billion in cash to something that nothing really happened. So I think Mayor Nancy has every right to raise questions on whether or not this amount should actually be paid to the private contractor.
Okay, so far that's at least one thing we know, that that agreement that Mayor Nancy is referring to, na midnight deal, is agreeing to settle an amount in relation to the subway project.
I think the basis for this is basically what the private contractor has actually paid for already, like the infrastructure that they had built, or maybe the holes that they've dug. But again, you have to go back to the entire idea of a PPP. The idea of a PPP is basically for the private contractor to actually foot the bill with no cost to government. So I think the question for Mayor Nancy is, if this is a PPP, why in the world are we actually going to settle this bill?
Which is why they're now starting an investigation.
I'm not certain whether or not it has actually been paid at the moment, but if it hasn't been paid at the moment, I think Mayor Nancy has every right to, firstly, to cancel the settlement deal, and secondly, to not pay a single centavo of Makati funds to the private contractor.
What about cash advances, Dr. Reggie? That's what Mayor Isko is alleging in Manila. Pag yun ba pwede pang bawiin?
Nabayaran na,
Yeah.
na cash advance. I think it's of course the remedy for an LCE, for example, Mayor Isko, is to look into the transaction. Is that really it's down to, of course, to the benefit of the Manileños, or is it really something na it went to a personal, for personal gain? I think that's always a remedy left for them naman.
Mhm.
Yes.
Well, earlier we were discussing the lack of a law that's very specific to what we call midnight deals. Congressman Terry, do you think that a law should be passed specifically for midnight deals?
Well, I think looking at the Makati Subway case and, well, what Mayor Isko is actually looking at now in Manila, I think there is merit, no, for a new law prohibiting like large financial transactions to be undertaken by outgoing officials. No? So I think Congress can look into that, which is similar to the prohibition on midnight procurement before and after an election period. No? So I think we don't have bars on financial transactions like what had happened in Makati, only bars relating to actual project procurement.
What about having an audit period wherein if there's a transition, there should be an audit period that's mandatory?
Well, we don't have that yet, but I'm quite certain during the transition, new leadership would definitely look at all the payments, all the advances, all the projects, no, that had been undertaken by the previous administration. So I think there's like a similar audit internal audit being done by a new leadership. But again, simultaneously, there's an annual audit undertaken by the Commission on Audit anyway. So I think that would suffice for now. But like the financial transactions bar is something that Congress could actually look into.
And Professor Reggie, in the past administrations, which administration had, in your opinion, the most controversial deals that were done?
For me, historically, I think we can go back to the Marcos Senior administration, right? The deals that he made with the cronies, the deals with those, questionable, of course, transfer of money. I think that's the administration that gave us, that we will never forget, of course, those midnight agreements or midnight deals, if I may say it or properly use that term, midnight deals, because I consider them as midnight deals.
Why would you consider them midnight deals considering ang haba ng term ni Marcos Sr.?
No, they were done before, it's a period wherein it was already ousted. And then those deals were done during those periods.
Would you remember anong mga deals yun? Because from what I can remember, and I was really like a child nung nagkaroon ng EDSA revolution, but don't you think that medyo sudden para sa kanila? And when you talk about the cronies, yung mga acquisitions were made during the length of his term.
Up until now, they were trying to get
unwind,
right? And those are deals, done with the cronies. Like I don't like to name names, but you know about the Cojuangcos, the Tans before, because of the deals that they have with the Senior Marcos, and of course the questionable assets, of course, of the Marcoses. So hanggang sa ngayon, binabawi at sinusubukan nating kunin lahat ng mga deals na nagawa during his term. And of course those are really, for me, questionable deals, because these are made for their benefit. It's not for the Filipino people's benefit.
And where do we draw the line when it comes to a difference in prudent decision making? So you might have an outgoing official that entered into a contract that might have been not fiscally wise for an LGU, and then the incoming official reviews it and medyo gipit nga or kulang sa budget. But to what extent can we have a remedy kung if it just puts the LGU in a precarious situation financially?
Well, if an obligation hasn't actually been paid, the new leadership can basically put a stop to it. No? So, like for the example in Makati, if the 8 billion settlement amount hasn't been paid yet, Makati Mayor Nancy Binay can actually just just cancel the check.
Hindi
If
ba
there's a
unfair
check.
naman yun dun sa contractor or private parties?
Well, I don't know.
So let's say not Makati per se, because I understand that might really be, well, it's up for determination, but that is really a big amount, lalo na kung wala pa tayong makitang subway. We don't really know how much the boring of the holes cost. But let's say other types of deals where there's really cost already to the contractor.
Maghapon na lang siguro sila sa barangay. Hindi ko alam. I think it's if there's a fraudulent transaction, I think new leadership should have the actual political will, political muscle to cancel all of these things. No, so if a private contractor has ill feelings about what a new leadership had undertaken, then they're free to go to the courts, no, to put a stop to it. If they don't get the TR for this particular petition, then they have to wait it out. I think that's the basic remedy to, private contractors who actually did bad deeds or did not deliver on what they actually had to deliver.
But that's why a distinction dun sa mga in good faith. They entered into the transaction, but upon review of the new official, they find it to be too costly for the LGU and something that, from a leadership standpoint, was not really a prudent decision on the part of the past mayor or the past government official in charge.
But I guess that's the reason why you have like arbitration clauses, no? So whatever the new leadership's feelings about a previous contract, because there's an arbitration clause, whether in the Philippines or abroad, it's not as easy for new leadership to actually cancel contracts and stop checks.
And Professor Reggie, since we were talking about like this whole ambiguity, but you said yung isang tinitignan mo is the timing. It makes it suspicious if it's too close to the change in the administration of an LGU or even at the national level. Do you think there should be ethics training or some sort of orientation for all officials so that we know what's a proper period to enter into transactions?
I believe, of course, the DILG through the local government academy, they've been doing a lot of trainings. And the CLRG, yung center namin, the Center for Local and Regional Governance, has been giving also training or delivering training programs for our local government officials. No? So, napaka-importante sa amin yung ethics is lagi. No? In our training programs in the Center for Local and Regional Governance, we always put ethics as one of the important components, wherein we talk about corruption, paano ba dapat, what is the right behavior, no, na isang local government official. So we do that, and I believe also newly elected officials do have trainings on this, orienting them about different laws. Ano ba dapat gawin na isang local government official. In his or her term.
Okay. And do you think it's realistic or possible to institutionalize a citizen's audit? But before you answer that question, we'll have to take a short break. At the forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the forefront. Do you think it's feasible to institutionalize a citizen's audit?
Well, I think it's very important for the public to be able to participate. No? So whether they work together with current leadership or whether they work together with the commission audit, I think it's something that should be welcome, particularly if they have some details on, like fraudulent transactions that they actually know of, or like they have observations on whether or not there has been actual delay in the implementation of projects. Because particularly in infrastructure, I think that has always been the frustration of each and everyone, that firstly, projects are delayed, or secondly, roads are still okay, but are continuously being repaired. No? So I think if there are like grievance mechanisms that agencies, offices can actually undertake, it's something that we should be able to welcome.
Yeah. Well, maganda na minention mo yan with roads being repaired constantly because even just growing up here in the Philippines, pagka may mga inaayos na kalye, I've always hear Filipinos saying na mag-i-election na naman kasi, so kailangan daw gumastos. But it would be good to know kung yung timing ba is suspicious or if it's really a required repair. But in your experience, kayo, Congressman Terry, you're one of those that really file against corruption, if there are acts of corruption. And Professor Reggie, in your experience, madali bang kumuha ng detalye with ongoing projects or those that have been granted?
Well, to be fair, just before you answer, to be fair to DPWH, well, there are PDF files that are available online, particularly on notices of award, particular details of the project itself. No, so I think from a transparency standpoint, I think they have been very transparent on the details. No, but they're not as transparent though on implementation. So because I think to be fair to them as well, I think even if you see like a flat road, which seems okay, doesn't actually always mean that it's okay. No? So maybe maintenance work should actually be done on these particular roads.
What about LGUs? Have you had any experience of getting details of contracts awarded?
Hindi naman siya mahirap. It's been, I mean, local government units have been very open. They have a system of transparency then, and when it comes to projects, you can access them in any form, maybe in their website, in their even in Facebook pages that they have, and also you can request them. And of course, that's as always, you can easily access naman yung mga projects. Yung sabi ni Attorney Ridon, it's correct, no? Yung sa implementation part niya, maybe you have to really look at that. That's why it's not only on the papers that they seems to be very perfect or they look really good. That's why CSO's role, even in the implementation, nakikita sana kung ilan pa talaga yung ginagamit na semento, halimbawa for road projects. Because of course, as you can see there, ganito naman yung budget niya, so sa documents, but in the actual yung bakal na ginamit, meron ba talaga or
may substandard ba or kulang,
those are issues that we have really to ensure na nasusunod talaga, no? And of course, CSOs, there are CSOs that are technically good that they can possibly see those. That's why you have to encourage some CSOs na monitoring projects like this, that they have also the technical capability to determine whether or not these are substandard or
or even the transparency of the testing, because when I was still working at the Department of Public Works, ang isang narinig ko, yung iba daw alam din kung saan i-inspect para yung thickness ng road tama dun sa portions na itetest, pero the rest hindi na in accordance with the standard of the contract. So yung mga ganung bagay. But in the past, there was a Freedom of Information bill that was filed, but this did not become a law. But at least at the admin level, under President Duterte, they required government agencies to pass like their own department orders to allow citizens to request for information on projects and other transactions of certain government agencies. Si Senator Ping Lacson has been also proposing that magkaroon na ng law that requires the disclosure of bank accounts also mandatory. What do you think of that type of legislation? Does this do you think this will complement yung, let's say, pagtigil din sa mga midnight deals?
Well, I think this is transparency legislation that Senator Ping wants to. It's something that we can actually support, particularly because even within the formal financial system, it has also been a refuge of corrupt and illegal transactions being undertaken by government officials. No? So the waivers on bank secrecy is something that we can support. No? Not just for elected officials, but for all appointed officials as well. So at least we can see like the details of their transactions, investments, bank deposits, among others.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Reggie and Congressman Terry. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What was once a routine end-of-term paperwork has exposed a web of last-minute transactions that undermine trust and cripple new leadership. The call for stronger oversight, mandatory audits, and citizen involvement is no longer optional. It is urgent. If midnight deals are the final acts of unchecked power, then accountability must be the final curtain call for involved officials. Be timely informed, be insightful of the news, always stay at the forefront. Join us again tomorrow for conversations on issues that matter. This is Attorney Karen Jimeno. Thank you for spending your hour with us.